Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Sean's Horror Corner. As always, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you tuning in today. Today, I'm excited to have back my new friend Matt from Getting Off. Matt, how are you, sir?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for coming on again. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Listen, you reached out. We talked about a couple different things. You threw out Wrong Turn. And this is a franchise that I've never really got to talk about on a podcast. So I was really excited to sit down and do this with you.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, it's an interesting franchise. We'll get more into some of that later on. But yeah, I'm definitely curious what you think about this first one. But before you get started, or before we get started, go ahead and take a minute to plug your channel, talk about all the things you have going on, anything new you have coming up that you want to promote.
If you guys are unfamiliar with Getting Off, much like this, it is a horror podcast. I try and gear everyone towards our YouTube, which is under the Creatia World banner. You can find it youtube.com/Creatia World. But, our audio does pretty well. So if you prefer to listen to podcasts on your drive, you can find everything at linktree/Getting Off, audio, video, all of the things. Coming up, we're actually sitting down with Kelly from Final Girls and her brother Eric, who is married to Sarah from Final Girls, and we're going to talk the first four Alien we've ever seen, the Alien quadrilogy. So this will be Katie's first time watching all four movies and us sitting down and dissecting it. And I'm super excited, and that'll be Sunday. So if you guys want
Nice.
to tune in and check us out live, that'd be awesome. If you want to watch after the fact, also awesome. But yeah, 9 p.m. Central Time on Sunday over at youtube.com/Creatia World. And then we have a Katie Horror Showcase 2 weeks after that, which is going to be Pumpkinhead, which again, Katie is watching for the first time. And a month from now will be the second round of Trick or Trivia, and we will find out who is joining Sean in the finals to face Kelly.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. I had a blast the first time you had me come on. We talked about that. I was you and I chatted a little bit first, and I was talking about how much I love slashers, and you set me up, and you were like, "Oh yeah, that's great," and then you're like, "The categories is vampires and werewolves," and I was like, "Fuck." I was
Well,
like, "This might not be good."
the categories this time around, because it's going to be on Father's Day, is dads in horror, but
Okay.
also fathers in horror.
Okay, very cool.
So
Yeah,
it's
that will
it's
definitely be a lot of fun.
Father's Day themed this year, so or this episode. So yeah, on Father's Day, come join me. I am a father. I have two little girls upstairs. Come celebrate Father's Day with me and watch some horror trivia. It's going to be a good time.
Absolutely, yeah, it's always a blast. So definitely check out Getting Off, check out Creatia World, everything Matt got going on. It's a lot of good stuff. And I will say as well, and I told her this when her and Sarah were on with me recently. Um, I mean, I don't know who else is going to be there yet, but I'm nervous going up against Kelly. Kelly's sharp.
Kelly is sharp. Kelly is
So,
sharp.
yeah, but it'll be fun regardless. Yeah, and I appreciate you again so much you having me on. But today, Matt and I are going to be talking about Wrong Turn, the first one from 2003. Um, I saw this movie in theaters when it first came out. It Everybody that knows me, I don't feel like I'm giving away too much here because everybody that knows me very well knows that this is kind of one of those comfort movies for me. But before we get into too much, give me your spoiler-free thoughts on this movie.
Okay. I'm a fan. No, I'm a fan of the franchise. I
Okay.
own. I believe there's six. Correct.
I think that's right. Yeah, and maybe seven, counting that remake, whatever the
Yeah.
hell that thing was. Yeah,
Are we gonna talk about that eventually down the road?
maybe.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
own the first six movies, the original six movies in the franchise. So I am a
Okay.
fan of the franchise. However,
Okay.
I don't know if it was the mood that I was in yesterday or what, but I was watching this and I'll get deeper into detail, but the entire time I'm watching this, it reminded me of other movies that did a lot of the same things, but better. One of those movies came out the same year that this did. One came out 3 years later,
Okay.
but also has a very similar feel. And we'll talk about the characters and everything. It's just, I remember, I don't know how long it's been since I've rewatched this movie because it's something that I go back to, I wouldn't say frequently, but every now and then I'll throw on. And generally I enjoy it. So, like I said, I don't know if it was just the mood I was in yesterday, but I was like, I feel like I remember this being gorier. I feel like I remember this being more violent, and everything felt muted to me yesterday
Okay.
in this movie. And it's still a fun movie to sit down and enjoy. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's a bad movie. It's not a bad movie, but it was either the mood I was in yesterday, and that could be completely on me.
Okay.
But I was just like, this doesn't feel like the way I feel it should.
Okay.
Rewatching it this time. Maybe I
Okay.
was too analytical because I was taking notes to talk about it. That could be it too, you know?
Yeah, and it's funny because I think I just said that the other day. I can't remember what movie it was that I was watching, but it's amazing how much just the mood that you're in or what you might be doing or that kind of thing can affect your experience. Because there can be something that I really enjoyed, and then I rewatch it and I'm like, okay, this is not as good as I remember, or vice versa. Something I didn't really like, and I just to go back and give it a rewatch, and I'm like, okay, that was better than I thought it was. Like, was I just in a bad mood the first time? Like, I don't know. But I think that happened with me recently. I was watching. What was my episode that just came out? Five Nights at Freddy's, Part Two. I
Yeah,
just
too.
had that one come out, and yeah, it's very mid as far as I'm concerned. But I also noticed I was in a little bit of a mood when I was watching it, so maybe that's on me.
I
That could be
mean,
it.
I enjoyed Five Nights at Freddy's. I enjoyed Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I feel like the ending of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 kind of did it a disservice. Like ending
Okay.
it the way that they did kind of made the movie feel incomplete. So I can see that,
Okay.
especially if you were in a mood. You
Yeah.
know, I had a long weekend. And by Sunday, I worked Sunday through Thursday. So I got home Sunday and then I sat down to watch this movie. My daughter was out playing. She came back in. So we do daddy daughter movie night every Friday.
Okay.
And she's watching scary movies. Recently, she watched Children of the Corn.
Oh,
Nothing
okay.
scares this little girl. I can, like, not one movie I have shown her has she had a nightmare. Have we had a problem? Like, she might get a little jump scare, but then she laughs. Nothing bothers her. So she walked in during this, and like I said, this kind of felt a little muted to me. So I'm like, outside of the two sexual comments, which I also wrote down because I really enjoyed them, that are kind of made the movie, there's really nothing in here that I'm too worried about her seeing
Sure.
compared to what she's already seen.
Right.
So she sat down and she was watching with me and she was asking questions. She wanted me to start it up from the beginning, and I was halfway through the movie. I'm like, that's not going to happen. But like, it was a long day. There was a lot going on after a long weekend. So like I said, it may have just been my mood.
I get that.
Um, but I do enjoy the franchise, and I do have notes. I don't know how positive they are, but I have
Okay.
notes.
All right. Well, this might be yeah, this might be interesting because yeah, I mean I've already said it. I'm a big fan of this movie. But yeah, we'll see how this works out. I mean, even if we disagree, it's still fun to have the conversation. So we'll get into
Absolutely.
it. We'll see what happens. Quickly, tagline for the film: "It's the last one you'll ever take." Brief synopsis for this movie: Chris crashes into a carload of other young people, and the group of stranded motorists is soon lost in the woods of West Virginia, where they are hunted by three cannibalistic mountain men who are grossly disfigured by generations of inbreeding. Film released May 30th of 2003, directed by Rob Schmidt, written by Alan B. McElroy, 84-minute runtime, $12.6 million budget, $28.7 million at the box office, so not huge, double what the budget was, but still not a huge hit. Few members of the cast: Desmond Harrington, Eliza Dushku, Emmanuel. I'm going to say this name wrong. I always pronounce her name wrong. Sharik. Do you know how you say her last name?
I always say Cherky.
Turkey. That works for me as well. I'm not sure how you say it. Jeremy Sisto and Kevin Zegers. Let's stop there for a minute and give me your thoughts on the cast and the characters for this one. And please be nice to Eliza because I'm a huge fan of her.
Oh no, I have nothing bad to say about Faith from Buffy. I absolutely do
Okay.
not. The problem with this movie is, well, I won't say problem. What I realized watching this movie was I only remember two characters from this movie. I completely forgot about
Really?
everyone else in this movie, and it was Eliza Dushku and it was Emmanuel Cherky.
Okay.
I I know Jeremy Sisto was in Clueless. Completely forgot he was there. The other guy is Detective Quinn from Dexter. That's how I remember him. The
Okay.
main. Uh,
Desmond Harrington. Yeah. He's
yeah,
also in,
yeah.
I think it's Ghost Ship. This is what I
Yes,
remember
yes,
him
yes,
from.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. But I always think Detective Quinn from Dexter.
Okay.
Then Lindy Booth is here,
Yes.
and her boyfriend just to me was Timu Zac Efron. I kept
Fair.
looking at him. I'm like, that looks like Zac Efron, but that's not Zac Efron.
Yeah.
You're not quite Zac Efron.
Right.
But yeah, no, I didn't remember anyone. I mean, obviously you remember the monsters, right? Like
Sure.
disfigured and things like that. But as far as characters go, I didn't remember them. And then on top of that, and this is where I'm going to be a little mean.
Okay.
I love Elijah Dushku. I do. She does not do very much in this movie up until the end. And because of that, if we were to sit down and do a trivia, and you asked me, what is the name of the final girl in Wrong Turn? I could tell you the actress that played her. I could not tell you her name. If you asked me who's the final girl in Halloween, Laurie Strode.
Right.
Who's the final girl in Nightmare on Elm Street? Nancy Thompson. Scream. Sidney Prescott. So on and so forth.
Sure.
You know, like, as far as the pantheon of final girls go, I know Elijah Dushku was in this movie, but the character that she portrayed was not memorable enough to hold on to this person.
Okay.
Just the actress that played her. I know her. I love her.
Right. Okay. That's fair.
And then I know Emmanuel Chirky from Entourage. So,
yeah.
And a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. I'm a little bit hurt as we get started here, but that's okay. I'll shake it off.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I don't know. I've seen this movie multiple times. Like I said, I saw it in theaters when it first came out. I absolutely loved it the first time I saw it. As soon as it was, available. I don't know if it was streaming somewhere then later, or I just went out and bought the DVD. I don't recall, but I can't tell you how many times I've watched this movie, and so I remember all of these characters very well. It could be because I've seen this so many times, because I probably still watch this movie once a year. It's something that I'm going to throw on at some point throughout the year, just because I love it. I see what you're saying about the character of Jesse. I'm probably a little biased here just because Nev Campbell, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Eliza Dushku. If one of those three are in the movie, I'm probably going to like it, just to be fair. But no.
I get
it. But no, I'm just a big fan of hers. So I like her character in this. See your points. Until the end of the movie, yeah, maybe not the strongest final girl. I'm just a big fan of the actress, so maybe that's what
she
my
doesn't
thing is here. But I see it.
She doesn't have much dialogue in the movie. I noticed. Like, we get a little bit about like how she had a breakup, but that's all from other characters talking about her behind her back. And then there's a little back and forth between her and Chris, but like not a lot of dialogue, not a lot going on until like the very end fight.
Yeah,
which was crazy to me because I remembered. And it's probably because, again, Faith from Buffy, I was like, she's going to kick these guys' ass. And in the end, yes, but it's a ways away.
Fair. I get it. I do think she's pretty impressive in the trees, but we'll get there in a minute. Although
yes.
That seems a little chaotic, but yeah, we'll get there here in a few minutes. What are your thoughts, though, on like the cinematography, score, story for this film?
The best music is in the end credits, and that's very like 2000s movie. Same thing with like Freddy versus Jason. It had a great soundtrack, but all of the cool music was in the credits. It didn't play maybe the big fight scene between Freddy and Jason. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which came out in 2003 as well, which we'll talk a little bit about today. Speaking of Jessica Biel. I mean, the score did what it needed to do, but there wasn't anything that really stood out to me in the score that I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, it was, again, everything to me just felt a little muted. Like, they didn't really drum the music up for the intense scenes. It was there, but it wasn't like, it didn't get louder. It didn't kind of crescendo when stuff was happening. Cinematography was, I mean, it's a 2000s movie, so for 2000s, it was great.
I agree.
Emmanuel Chirky and Elijah Dushku and Lindy Booth all looked fantastic, especially Emmanuel Chirky. Me and my wife had a whole discussion back and forth about I prefer Emmanuel Chirky. She said no, Elijah Dushku. It was a whole thing during this movie. But I mean, there was nothing wrong with the movie. The cinematography, score, all of that, perfectly fine. I will say during the kills, like I said, I remember the movie being more brutal. They cut away from the kills very quickly. We did not see Evan get killed.
Right.
Lindy Booth gets grabbed. We don't see her die, but we do see like the barbed wire, you know,
Yeah.
even when Carly, Amanda or Emmanuel Cherky, like when that kill, which is probably the coolest kill in the whole movie,
I
they
agree.
cut away really quick after they do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think I agree with everything you just said. And it's funny, again, this part I know goes back to just how many times I've watched this movie, because I probably could have done this episode without watching it at all, but it was an excuse to watch it again. So I'm like, absolutely. So I turn it on, and when it first gets going and the score for this movie, its primary score starts playing, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this as well. And then I'm listening to it and I'm like, I mean, it's not that great. I just remember it probably because I've heard it so many damn times, really, at this point.
yeah.
Because it is, I mean, again, it's not bad. It's fine. But I agree. There's nothing that really stands out and makes it amazing. I am a huge fan of that Breaking Benjamin song at the end of the film. So I like that. But again, like you said, that's the end of the movie. So, yeah, completely get what you're saying there. I do think the cinematography is fantastic. And yeah, I can see the debate. I'm going to lean. I would side with your wife here, but you can't go wrong with either one. Let's talk about some production notes, because something you mentioned here, we got a little bit of a note about. Of course, Stan Winston, very well known. He did the creature effects for this film. Alan McElroy got the idea for this movie when he and his wife were forced to take a rural side road during a snowstorm at night to avoid being in an accident. And then as they get stuck on this side road and they're traveling in the snow and couldn't hardly see, he started thinking this might not be a good idea and started developing the idea for the Wrong Turn film. Here's what I wanted to touch on that you mentioned. So the movie was filmed in Canada. It had trouble getting an R rating due to the violence. They had to go back and cut out things quite a bit. Even the TV spots and ads were not approved and not airing. So they had a lot of problems with that and had to cut back quite a bit for this movie. So much so that sequels went direct to video because of restrictions. They didn't want to have to keep going through all that again to get a release. So part of the reason so many of these sequels were direct to video was because of them not wanting to have to cut back on the violence. I think
probably better off for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that shows in this movie, kind of what you were saying, because even though I've seen it multiple times and I know what to expect, I do. You can have some kills off screen. I hate it when the majority of the kills are off screen, or even half the kills are off screen. And I feel like that's a lot of what happens with this movie. Because again, our first two characters are basically killed off screen. Jeremy Sisto, I mean, he gets shot with the arrow. That's fine. It's a good scene, but it's not like it's an amazing kill. I agree with you that Emmanuel's character, that's the best kill in the movie, and they do cut away quick. Although I do like the shot of her body kind of falling down through those tree limbs. I think that's cool looking. But yeah, I think probably having to trim so much down definitely hurt this film.
Somebody did not like this movie because, again, so 2003 was my sophomore year of high school.
Damn,
Freddy versus Jason. Trust me, I feel old every time I talk to other podcasters and they tell me how old they are, and I'm like, oh, yeah. Fuck. They're like, oh, I was born in 2005, and I was like, oh cool. Freddy versus Jason came out. I feel like that had way more, like the amount of blood spraying, and it was a little bit ridiculous, but like a lot more was allowed in that movie, which came out the same year. Same thing with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean, you had the whole thing with, you know, the girl in the opening scene shooting herself in the hole in the back of the head and going through the hole, and all of these things. And both of these movies came out the same year as this and didn't seem to suffer from the same issues that this one had as far as getting that R rating while still showing some violence. So I'm very curious as to who the director or producers pissed off, where they're like, yep, no, cut.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, Alan McElroy, I mean, he worked on a couple of the films, I think at least one of the films in the Halloween franchise, so it's not like it's, you know, Stan Winston's a big name. I don't know why they would have had the issues. I don't know, is it the subject matter? I think nowadays this subject matter would be more difficult when you get to the inbreeding type thing. It would probably have a harder time getting that to go through now than you would back then. maybe because it doesn't have the legacy that a Friday the 13th, a Nightmare on Elm Street, a Texas Chainsaw. I don't know, but I'm with you. I don't understand why this movie had such a hard time. I feel like this is the kind of movie that would be a good one for if you're trying to, and you might disagree with me, but if you're trying to get somebody into horror that maybe doesn't like the gore, that's one of their holdups is they don't want to see all that. This might be a good starting place for somebody because they're still going
Yeah,
to get some of it, but
absolutely.
it's not going to be too much. So, that kind of thing. But yeah, all of that being said, I still find myself enjoying this one quite a bit. So let's get into the plot. We'll start walking through this and we'll see how much Matt's going to hurt my feelings when we do this. All right. So we get our opening scene. We get this couple doing their rock climbing in this forest somewhere there in West Virginia. The guy makes it to the top before he gets attacked and killed off screen. Girl starts getting pulled up this mountain, cuts herself free and falls. She hears three fingers, classic laughter there. I think that was pretty good. Tries to take off running to the car, trips on some barbed wire, pulled away. Give me your thoughts on this opening scene. Obviously, if the movie was not quite as good for you this time, it might not be as effective here. But your thoughts on this opening?
Every time I see someone rock climb in a movie, they always either almost fall or do fall, and every time I think to myself, this is the dumbest hobby you could have. Why are we doing this? Um, the only issue I had with this was she fell, and she was uninjured after falling next to him. She got up and was
Yeah,
able to run after Wile Coyoteing right off that cliff.
yeah, I
And I
agree.
was like, but again, the laugh is iconic. Like
Right.
you hear that laugh. That is one of the things about this. You hear that, you think wrong turn. So
Yeah.
you hear Three Fingers laugh. I was sitting here and I was just kind of teasing her because I'm like, she kept yelling, pull me up, and then as soon as she got pulled up, then she all of a sudden she didn't want to be pulled up anymore. Like,
Right.
why are you freaking out?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be a movie about the backwoods Virginia without inbreeding.
Agree.
Um, the opening, it's cool though. Like, we have gone so far by 2026 in the terms of opening scenes and what they show. I always reference my favorite horror movie, 2013's Evil Dead, and that opening, which is insane. We light a girl on fire and shoot her with a shotgun and
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff. So by those terms, again, very tame, but it was not ineffective in what it was doing. Yeah, again, I feel like they were hindered by what they were able to put on screen, and I'm sure a director's cut or an unrated version that put all of those kills back in would do what we needed, what I needed it to do for me, and made it that much more visceral and
Yeah.
get my blood pumping a little more. But for what it was cool. Like, rock climbing in and of itself is terrifying. Running into inbred mutants at the top of a mountain, even more terrifying. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll wait to talk about the other movies. So
Okay.
we'll get there.
Okay. No, I agree. I like the opening. I think it's, again, I mentioned a while ago, I don't like a lot of off-screen kills. If we're going to do an off-screen kill, I don't mind them at the beginning like this because we're just getting
Mhm.
started and we're going to try to hide for a little while what our villain or villains looks like. So that's fine. I don't mind this kill being off-screen. I agree the same thing with you. In fact, when I was watching this again the other day, and I'm like you, I think it every time. But when she falls and it's not hurt, I'm like, that's a pretty good fall too. That was quite a ways up,
Mhm.
and she just, she didn't even injure an ankle. I mean, we've got people in Friday the 13th movies that, trip over a tree limb and then have to hobble around. They can't make it just from tripping. This girl fell a long ways and she's fine. So I get it. I'm with you there. Um, but yeah, then the laugh, like you said, iconic, and then she trips she trips on the barbed wire and then gets pulled away. So I enjoy the opening. I think it's fun. I think it's a good start to the film and gets things going. And now, since I've seen the movie so many times, every time I watch it again and I see the opening, I'm still like, oh yeah, I remember this. This is going to be fun. So I'm fully on board with the opening. I liked where we start. Then we meet Chris. Um, I can't think of the other guy's name. Jeremy Sisto's the actor. I just totally forgot his name in the film. What are your
I
thoughts on
have it right
Chris? We
here. Scott.
Scott, thank you. we were talking about characters a little bit earlier, and I didn't really mention this. I like Scott better than Chris. I don't know about you. Chris just seems kind of there.
Okay,
What about you?
so that is literally my first note is when you see these characters, you expect them to be stereotypes. Chris has a look about him, and again, it's probably because of his character in Ghost Ship, his character in Dexter, where he's kind of a douchebag. You
Yeah,
expect him to be a douchebag, and then he's not. He's just kind of like you said, a normal guy who's there, and eventually, kind of has a selfless hero thing.
right.
Jeremy Sisto, when I see him, Scott, I think Clueless, and he was a douchebag in Clueless. So I'm waiting for him to be like the douchebag boyfriend, and he's not. And I
Yeah,
feel like that was where I'm like, everything felt beautiful. They weren't characters, they were just regular people, which in a sense is more scary because now everyone is kind of relatable.
right.
But when you look at them, you have a perception of what you expect them to be, and then they're not that. And that can also be disappointing. Because one of my favorite things about the Friday the 13th remake is Travis Van Winkle is such a douchebag that I can't wait for him to die. And I'm
Yeah,
waiting the whole movie for Jason to kill him. When he does, I'm like, yes,
yeah.
finally, get that guy. You know? Because sometimes I like to root for the bad guys.
No, I get it.
But yeah, no, I'm with you. Chris, for the most part, just felt like he was there. And since we're on Chris,
Sure.
now I will start. Okay, so I said that I don't know if I have ever seen the original Hills Have Eyes. I can't
Sure.
remember. I'm pretty sure I've seen it once. I think I've only ever seen it once. So I don't know. I don't remember how much the original Hills Have Eyes and the 2006 remake mirror each other. What I do know is that I was watching this and I saw Chris come up to traffic and turn around and go to a gas station and talk to a toothless guy at a gas station that was run down and find a map and look at the map and say, hey, that's a shortcut that'll get me around all of this traffic. And the whole time I'm like, this is, and don't get me wrong, this came out first. So maybe they saw Wrong Turn and they said, hey, we're going to take that and we're going to do it a little differently. But as I'm watching this scene, I'm thinking, all I can think about is The Hills Have Eyes. As opposed to when I watch The Hills Have Eyes, I don't think, hey, this reminds me of Wrong Turn.
Yeah.
Even later on, when they figure out what's going on and they come across like the car graveyard,
Right.
again, I'm like, well, they had a giant fucking crater full of cars, but same
Yeah.
thing. And obviously, the villains are, for different reasons, very similar in both of those movies.
Sure.
And again, that movie is also very graphic in comparison to this. So,
Yeah.
but that is like the first thing that popped into my head where I was like, okay, this is reminding me of something else.
Yeah. I think I agree with you because I think this movie was heavily influenced by Hills Have Eyes. I just saw the original for the first time last year. I'd seen the remake a few times. I hadn't seen the original till last year for the first time. Um, I think, and maybe that's part of why this movie. I don't know. I feel like this movie I feel like this movie has a fan base, but I don't think there's a lot of middle ground on this film. I think people either really like this one or they really don't. I feel like, so for me, because I agree 100% with what you were saying about Chris, I feel like he's just there. He's supposed to be our main character, and I really, throughout this entire film, I never really care about him. I don't dislike him, but I don't like him either. He's just there as far as I'm concerned. In fact, I thought the scene was funny in the opening there when he first gets stuck in this traffic jam and he goes up and he's talking to the truck driver. And the truck driver says, what you want to do is get back in your car, fix your hair 3 or 4 more times. I don't know why. I thought that scene was funny. I enjoyed that scene. But yeah, and then he's fucking around with the CD player instead of paying attention to where he's going. And yeah, he's just, I don't know. I'm not a big fan. I also see what you're saying about Scott, Jeremy Sisto's character, but I at least thought he was funny. He
He
did
was
some
funny.
things and had some comments that I thought was funny. And I think, again, getting ahead of myself here, but if I compare this movie and The Hills Have Eyes remake, original, whichever, I like this movie better because I think this movie is fun. Hills Have Eyes is a good movie. I don't know if it's a fun movie.
It's not a fun movie.
Yeah, and this movie I've said multiple times. Part of the reason I'm such a big fan of Halloween and Michael Myers and Friday the 13th and Jason and the Texas Chainsaw franchise, the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is, I find those movies to be fun, and I want my horror to be fun because I feel like real life is fucked up enough. Let's have fun with the movies that we watch, and this movie is fun to me.
Let me correct that. The Hills Have Eyes remake is fun, but not until almost 2/3 of the way through the movie when he's in the town and him and the dog start killing all of the mutants in the town.
Yeah.
That is when it gets fun. Everything before that is not fun to watch.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Not that it's not a good movie. It's just not fun. This movie is fun to me. I can put this on and forget about real life and enjoy myself. So again, maybe that's another place where, but that's why I say this one I feel like is a little bit of a comfort movie for me. But yeah, we end up having Chris driving through here, takes this side road. We meet the guy at the gas station. I also find it amusing when the old man tells him as he's pulling away, "You're the one." What's he say? "You're the one gonna need to take care," or something like that. That cracks me up too for some reason. But he ends up crashing then into the car, and we meet the other characters of Jesse, Carly, Scott, Evan, and Francine. We find out that they run over some barbed wire that they are starting to believe was intentionally put there.
Hills Have Eyes.
Yes. Evan and Francine stay behind with the cars while the others go to look for some help. And then we kind of get Evan and Francine's issue here. Evan hears a noise in the woods after they have sex, basically, and goes to look for it, just ends up disappearing. We don't really see what happens to him. Francine then goes to look for him. I think she finds like a shoe, she finds his ear, and then she gets attacked. So give me your thoughts on our first attacks here outside of the opening. These two, what turned out to be kills. Your thoughts here?
Well, real quick, I just want to say, I keep saying Hills Have Eyes, and there are a couple, at least one, if not two other movies I'm going to talk about that. Again,
Sure.
They stuck out to me as something that this reminisced, but again, Hills Have Eyes came out 3 years after this, so, and I don't remember, you recently just saw the original Hills Have Eyes, so how much did the original movie mirror the remake as far as some of these things?
It's there. I don't remember there being a barbed wire thing. There might have been. I do remember the gas station, the old man, that kind of thing. That's all right there. Very, very, very similar.
Okay, because I was going to say, I want to say that this movie influenced The Hills Have Eyes with some of these things, like the barbed wire and all of that,
Yeah.
Because it's almost taken like shot for shot. Like,
Yeah.
You go there, you talk to this guy, here's the road, you leave, he's talking, and then the barbed wire blowing out the tires, and like it's all there.
Right.
Evan and Francine. So forgive me, I may sound a little misogynistic, but I think that another thing that this movie suffered from was a lack of nudity that may have helped it here in this scene when discount Zac Efron and
Yes.
Lindy Booth are about to have sex, and she says, "Get them trousers off, boy, don't be a sissy."
Yeah.
And then we cut back to her zipping her top up. Like, that also may have, the kills and then a little bit of nudity, which we do get later in the franchise,
Right.
may have helped the rememberability a little bit of something to, because like I said, I remember Elijah Dushku and I remember
Right.
Emmanuel Shirky, but that was really all I remembered about the movie. They're the sacrificial couple having sex in the woods. Their
Yeah.
friends go off to go find help. They're back here. They're going to do drugs. They're going to have sex. They're going to die. That's what they're there for. And they're the only ones that really kind of fit that stereotype, but they're not on screen long enough to really. It's like the camp counselors in the beginning of the first Friday the 13th movie. Like,
Yeah,
we
exactly.
caught them. They're there. It's fine. The barbed wire around Francine's mouth and pulling her. Again, they were cutting it
Yeah.
weirdly with the trees.
Right.
Still effective, though. You still see it go in. You still see her get pulled off.
Yeah.
We do get a nice clip of her later on the table,
Right.
missing her leg and all that.
Yeah.
I still want to know what the fuck happened to Evan, though. Like,
Yeah.
I would like to know what happened to Evan. Like, what did they do to Evan?
Yeah.
We found a shoe. Where's the rest of Evan?
Right. Which we see his body very briefly later on. But yeah, I agree with you. And I think, look, I'm right there with you because I don't want to sound, misogynistic either. But I feel like, let me decide how to say this and still be somewhat tactful. I think when it comes to slasher films primarily, there are certain things I feel like that you expect from a slasher film. You want some good kills, you want some fun, and it's just kind of goes hand in hand since the 80s that in these movies you have sex scenes and you have nudity. And when you try to PG this down, it does hurt the films. It really
Yeah.
does. It's not that I turn on a movie like one of the later Wrong Turns or Slumber Party Massacre or any of the Friday the 13th films. I don't turn those movies on. I just recently watched Friday the 13th 5. I didn't watch it because I'm like, oh, there's nudity in this. That's what I want to see. But it adds to it. I mean,
There's
it
a
just
lot of
does.
nudity in that one.
There really is.
And Debbie Sue Voorhees is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, listen, you said it very well. As a slasher fan, you come to expect certain things. And not having them there is fine because there are other people who are going to watch this movie and appreciate the fact that they're not there. And as
Right.
long as it is done in a way where the actresses feel comfortable and they don't feel exploited,
Absolutely.
things like that, things that we've learned over time that are important,
Yes.
then if it's in there, awesome. As long
Right.
as it's not an issue. It's not something that we have to come back to and be like, oh, well, they were creeps about it. They were this, they were that, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it is something that, as someone who grew up a slasher fan, you kind of come to expect. And when it's not
Right.
there, especially, it's the idea of the sin, right?
Right.
The more sinful the act, the more strong the punishment, I guess,
Right.
in these
Right.
movies.
No, I agree.
You
Randy
look at-
says it in Scream. He says it's a sin factor. I mean, that's one of the things
Mhm.
he tells them when he's giving his rules. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Hold on. Yes?
No, you're good, man.
Okay, can you go ask mommy? I'm on a podcast. Okay. Go talk to mom. My daughter doesn't
You're
like
fine,
to go
man.
to bed at her bedtime ever, and always has an excuse to get out of bed. I know. Go. Yeah, no. Randy says that, which oddly enough, Scream is one of those franchises that has zero nudity
Zero,
throughout the franchise.
Exactly.
But the kills are so good and strong that you don't really think about it or notice it.
Right.
Whereas in this one, like I said, we cut away from so many kills that, maybe a little bit of nudity might have helped, like, get past that fact.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially for something that came out in 1996. The kills were much stronger in Scream than they were here. So again, somebody had to piss somebody off, or there was some mothers against horror movies movement or something going on that they cut
Right.
so much of this film back.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And yeah, I'm with you. So from there, the group then goes and finds this cabin. Now, here's something I don't completely agree with. I mean, I get it, but it's Chris's idea basically to go in the cabin. Seems like Jesse and Scott are not for it, but Carly has to go to the bathroom. So they find this cabin. They end up going inside. They find some of the barbed wire. They find these body parts and things inside. Yeah, we're just kind of seeing them explore this place and all of these things. And then right as they decide they're ready to leave, then our villains show up. We're going to get introduced to Three Finger, One Eye, and Sawtooth are the names they go by. And we see them come in with Francine's body. We get to see them kind of dismembering Francine, like cutting off her leg. I think at one point we see maybe they're eating her or something, or maybe they're cooking something else. There's some shot in there where we get the idea that they're cannibals. They end up falling asleep. The group tries to escape, and then they end up getting seen. We get the chase into the forest, the group trying to come up with their plan. Chris tries to run off. He gets shot in the leg, so the girls end up taking him back to the truck. That's where we see Evan's body when they first open the door. We get Scott running to try to get away. He ends up getting shot with an arrow. Give me your thoughts here on the cabin scene, on Scott's death, and just kind of where we're going.
So again, a group of teens come across a house, enter a house that they're not supposed to enter, under the guise of looking for help because, and the house happens to be inhabited by cannibals. Sounds a lot like 2003's Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
It really
which
does.
again could not have ripped off because they came out the same year. I don't know which one came out first. It was, but
I'm not,
still,
yeah,
the movie would have been done before this came out. But
right.
again, I'm sitting here and I'm watching this. Also, Scott's flimsy excuse to go in and be like, "Hey, we need a phone," and Carly's like, "Hey, I need to use the bathroom." Nobody was looking in places that there was a phone for a phone. You're just
Yeah,
rummaging through these people's shit. Like, he went in the back and opened the refrigerator. I don't know about you,
right.
but in 38, 39 years of life, I forget how old I am sometimes. I've never once had I may accidentally put my phone in the refrigerator, but I've never had a phone in the refrigerator.
Yeah,
And I've
never.
never gone in the fridge looking for it. Same thing, like, she's walking around, like, Jesse's picking up blankets and looking under shit and, like, going through all their shit. Like,
Yeah.
you guys are not looking for a phone, but that's what you're
Mhm.
supposed to be looking for.
Right. Yeah,
You're
I
just rummaging
completely
through their
agree.
house.
Yeah, and I tell you, as much as I like the two female characters, and as funny as I think Scott is here in this film, I don't think I would have gone in the house anyway. Had I have been a member of this group, I think I would have just hung out outside. If I would have gone in the house, I'd have been in that house for about 15 seconds and then be like, no, we're getting the fuck out of here. Like, we're not going to stay in here and look around. This is fucking nasty. Let's get out of here. But maybe the movie was a
Scott's
little
best
shorter.
scene does happen here. So, like you said, our three inbred cannibals show back up. They've got Francine's body. They throw it on the table. The other thing that I was sitting here thinking, and listen, I don't know how great the daytime eyesight of inbred cannibals is, but the gap from the floor to whatever table that Jesse and Chris were hiding under when they
Yeah,
drop, he dropped something and he had to reach
a
down and get it.
bullet. Yeah, I think it's a
Yeah, the bullet.
bullet, a shotgun shell
I
or
was
something
like,
like that. Yeah,
that is so open. There's no way you didn't see them when you walked in the house. One.
yeah,
But this is Chris's best scene too, because this is we're getting out, they have the creaky screen door, and he grabs the
right,
spring and he holds the spring, doing the hero shit.
right,
Everyone get out as he's bleeding.
yeah,
Like, this is where you're kind of like, all right, you know what, Chris? You're not so bad, because he doesn't know these people. He could have
right,
easily been like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. Like,
yeah,
but he's saving them, helping them get out of the house. He also, like you said, gets shot on the way
yeah,
out
shot in the leg. Yeah,
so
when he's
that
trying
they
to run.
so that they can escape.
Yeah,
Um. So yeah, no, Scott's kind of, this is where he's like, hey, I opened this fridge and I saw body parts, and I think he might be a doctor or doctor adjacent, because he was on his way to an interview for something. So, like,
yeah,
he knows what body parts look like. He studied the human anatomy.
right,
So he knows what he's looking at, and he's like, we need to get the fuck out of here, and I need to protect these people. So, like, shout
yeah,
out to Scott for that. And
right.
that spring, again, that is something that I do remember. Like, when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
dude,
it's a
he's gonna
cool
grab the
scene.
spring, and that's gotta hurt like oh my
Yeah,
god. Mm.
yeah, I'm with you. I agree. I think that's a great scene. Um, one of the things here, I'm like you. Sometimes I like to cheer for the villain. It's just the way it is. And I think in a lot of movies, especially when you look at like the Halloween franchise, the Friday the 13th franchise, we cheer for those villains a lot because they're so memorable and so iconic and just great. Um, I don't have to have. I've said this before on other things. So many times we're for the villain that if we don't like the characters that the villains are after, that's fine because we're there for the kills anyway. We're there for the villain. But I do think if there are some characters that we like, that helps us feel a little more invested. Because I thought Scott was funny, I kind of hated him getting killed. He's trying to run. Yeah, Chris ran first to get things away, but then Scott steps up and he's trying to help. And he sees their truck, like he sees them. They see him. You think maybe he might make it, and then he gets shot like 4 times, I think, in the back with an arrow. Not that it's an amazing kill, but I like the way it was done as far as it looks like he's going to get away. Like they see him, he sees them, he might make it, and then no, it doesn't work out for him. Um, but
And
yeah,
not just liking characters too, hating characters also helps. Like I said,
yeah,
having an asshole character that you just want to see die. It's part of the reason why I love horror, is part of the reason why I fell in love with wrestling too, is in a lot of these movies you have these outlandish, over the top characters that you either absolutely love or absolutely hate, but you're
yeah,
emotionally invested in them one way or the other. You
right,
want to see them win, or you want to see them lose, or in our case for horror movies, die.
right,
Um, and nobody here, I thought that Carly was going to kind of be that spoiled princess, and she has a little bit of that. You know, she's
Yeah.
stopping to cry, she's
Right.
ignoring her surroundings and yelling out for help when they're trying to be quiet. Like, but she's not terribly spoiled princess, even though she gives off that energy.
Right.
Um, Before we got to the house, that was the other line where he they were walking by the edge of the cliff, and he pretends like he's going to go over,
Yeah.
and she's like, when we get back to the hotel room, you got to run me a hot bath and give me multiple orgasms, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. But again, there was nobody that I was really rooting for to be like,
Okay.
I want to see you win, but also nobody that I was like, oh, I can't wait for you to die. You suck. Like, you gotta
Yeah.
go. So I wasn't emotionally invested in anyone until, like I said, until the end fight. Then
Okay.
there's some emotional investment, but they didn't get me there throughout the movie where I'm like, please make it. But you were like, you
Right.
enjoyed um, Jeremy Sisto's character, and you were sad to see him. So
Yeah.
they did do their job, like that
Right.
for you, which
Yeah.
is what a movie should do, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, no, yeah, and I agree. And it's so funny you said something there. We're gonna take a quick side note because I did not know you were a wrestling fan. So I'm gonna get completely off track for just a moment because I'm also a wrestling fan. Who's your favorite wrestler?
All time. So, all right, real sidetrack. I
Yeah.
was a wrestling fan until about the middle of last year. A lot of stuff in wrestling has kind of turned me off. The last thing I tuned into was WrestleMania, and I didn't
Okay.
love it enough to watch it. The majority of my life, my favorite wrestler has been The Undertaker. I've,
Okay.
again, kind of like the majority of my life, my favorite horror movie was Halloween, and then I've
Yeah.
kind of settled on something a little newer, and Evil Dead 2013 is my favorite.
Okay.
Same thing. So Bray Wyatt, because
Okay.
again, I love when you take horror and
Yeah.
wrestling and bring them together. So those characters that do that and do that effectively are
Yeah.
some of my favorite characters. So I absolutely love Bray Wyatt, and he is currently, rest in peace, my favorite
Yeah. Rest in
wrestler.
peace. Okay.
But Mick Foley's fantastic. Like there's so many great characters out there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I had to. Of course, I'm a
I
little bit
had
older
a
than
wrestling
you.
podcast.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
So there was Smacking It Raw that came first, and then as I was doing that for a few years, I was like, I also want to talk about horror. So then Getting Off was developed as kind of like a horror sister podcast
Okay.
to
Gotcha.
Smacking It Raw.
Okay.
And Katie does a wrestling podcast actually.
Okay.
So that's how
Very
I met.
cool.
That's how I met Katie, and I met Reek was all through wrestling podcasting. Katie, Reek, Justin, Will, everyone
Yeah.
that I work with over on Getting Off, we're all wrestling fans that I met wrestling podcasting, who were also
Okay.
horror fans, and that kind of transferred over to Getting Off.
Very cool. I did not know that. Yeah, my dad, again, we're off track. We'll get back on track in just a moment, I promise. But I'm quite a bit older than you. I mean, I just turned 54 like 10 days ago. So I'm getting old. But my dad he was a police officer, then he was a detective when I was young, and he just wasn't around a whole lot. He was doing a lot of, a lot of investigating and things, and he worked nights quite a bit. So my dad was gone a lot when I was younger. But two things that he always made sure to do with my brothers and I was he on nights where he was off work and he was home, he read his comic books. So I grew up a huge, primarily DC superhero fan. And at that point, of course, again, I'm older, so world class championship wrestling was big here in like Oklahoma, Texas. Like I grew up watching the Von Erichs, and my dad would take us to wrestling matches. I saw the Von Erichs in person. I saw the Freebirds. I watched, Hulk Hogan and Hulkamania and all that thing. I was a huge Macho Man fan. I absolutely loved Macho Man, especially back in the day. But nowadays, I don't watch wrestling like I used to. Um, I know, it's on Netflix on Monday nights. I never watch it Monday night, but probably by Wednesday or Thursday at some point, I've gone back and checked out the episode just to see what was happening. I guess if I had to pick a favorite now, it might be Randy Orton. I'm a big Randy Orton fan. I like him as well. But yeah, I still keep an eye on it. My youngest brother, huge wrestling fan. Bray Wyatt was his favorite. So it's interesting. I'm starting to find a lot of that in the horror community. There's a lot of horror fans that are wrestling fans, and vice versa. So it's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know you were one. All right.
Kelly's also a little bit of a wrestling fan.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Although now that makes sense because I've gone back and listened to so many of their episodes, and there are times I hear her mention something a little bit. It's just once in a while, and I'm like, interesting. I didn't know Kelly knew who that was. So yeah, that might explain it a little bit.
Yep.
All right, very cool. We'll get back on track now. Sorry for that. As they're driving away in the truck, we get more of Three Fingers' iconic laugh. He's kind of chasing them a little bit. The truck ends up getting stuck. They find this watchtower and go inside. They try to use the radio. Our cannibals are coming by. They end up hearing the radio, I believe, is actually what they hear up there, make noise, and they try to climb up and get in. That doesn't work, so they set this tower on fire. The next set of scenes I find both fun, but also so unbelievable. And again, now, I've never been to West Virginia up in the mountains like that. Probably won't ever be in that area. It just amazes me. It amazes me that they jumping from the watchtower to the trees to keep from burning to death. Totally get it. Worth a shot. Because I wouldn't want to be burned alive either. So I completely understand. But then we get this whole chase scene through the trees where like Three Finger has got up in there as well. We get Carly's kill, which I think is a really good kill. I also hated to see her die as well. But I thought it was a great kill. And like you said, they do cut away, but I do love the shot of her body falling down through the limbs there. I think that's pretty cool. The way Jesse and Chris are able to, it's a chase scene through the trees, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Are the trees really this big? Like, can you really do this up here? But I mean, Three Fingers getting around as well. They kind of set Three Finger up where they're able to knock him down, and then they somewhat escape where they end up like hiding behind a waterfall. We get a little bit more backstory on Jessie there because, like you said, she hasn't talked a whole lot. I mean, she's communicated, but we haven't got a lot from her. She finally ends up telling Chris more of her story here behind this waterfall about her and her friends, that kind of thing. Cannibals end up attacking them. They take off with Jesse. We have a deputy that shows up and Chris is talking to, and the deputy gets killed. But so I kind of want to hear your thoughts here, primarily on the watchtower scene, the chasing in the trees. We've already talked about Carly's kill a little bit, but anything else you want to share there? Yeah, just give me your thoughts here.
Well, this is where we get to the part where I said that Carly comes off as the rich girl princess. She's not that bad, but like after the car gets stuck, she wants to sit down and cry. And don't get me wrong, her boyfriend just died. Like he got shot with arrows. She watched that. So I get that, but also you're in imminent danger. Now is not and you see that they're hunting you. So now is not the time to stop and mourn. Then they see the watchtower, and again, you know you're being hunted, and she starts calling out for help, and they're like, hey, shut the fuck up. Like, what are you doing? You're giving our position away. Yeah. Clearly. And then even when they're in the watchtower, someone finally chirps back on the radio, and she immediately takes it and starts talking loudly, which again, I get it. You want to be rescued, but you know that they're down there. So like they can hear the radio anyway at that point. I think it's really cool how Three Fingers goes through the woods, and through the trees, and I justified it in my mind as he grew up here. As a kid, he probably climbed the trees, he probably ran around the trees. Like, he's not going into town and playing arcade games. This was what, as children, you know, to have fun, they probably did, was climb these giant trees and run around and swing and hang out. So, like, him maneuvering so agilely through it, I justified it that way. I was like, it makes sense. He grew up in these trees. Like, this is his home, essentially. This is his playground. Because he's not hanging out with other kids looking the way he did. Like,
It's very true.
You know, you're inbred for a reason. Carly being able to jump out of the watchtower, but not being able to climb down the tree. Yeah, she was too scared. Bothered me a little bit. I was like, you just jumped out into the tree, but now you can't go down the tree. I feel like the jump is scarier than the climb down, but you know, that's not me. It gave us the kill. Three Fingers getting knocked out. Fucking Looney Tunes as hell. Pull the tree branch back, wait for him to come by and whack him. But it worked.
It was funny.
This is also where Jesse finally steps up because Chris is like, all right, hold this tree branch. And she's like, where are you going? And he's like, I'm going to draw him over here. She goes, you're hurt. I got this. And now Carly's like, I'm taking the lead here. You're injured. Let me save you and
Yeah.
help you the way you've been trying to do us the entire time. So this is like
Right.
her first step towards final girl badassdom in
Yeah, I
this
agree.
movie. It sucks that it took so long for us to get there, and they didn't give us like anything prior to this to give us a feel of like she's going to be a threat. But then again, you
Right.
look at, we've talked about Halloween, you look at characters like Laurie Strode. Laurie Strode is the farthest thing from a badass. She fights back out of necessity,
Right.
you know? So there is that aspect to it. There are a bunch of different final girls. We have been spoiled with really badass women in horror movies as of late.
Yeah.
So we have to remember that we didn't always have that, and sometimes it's just about survival and doing whatever you can to survive, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But yeah, no, this was her
Yeah.
first step to that. She has her little nightmare where they're coming to get her, and then wakes
Yeah.
up, and then, like you said, they end up getting her anyway.
Yeah.
So all of this was good. This is again where the movie sort of ramps up for our final two characters. As soon as Carly goes down, we've got our last two, and now we're ramping things up towards the finale.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think I agree with you 100% what you're saying here. It is the ramp up. All this time, I've been a fan of Jesse's character, but probably more a fan of, kind of like you were saying, I'm a fan of the character because I'm a fan of the actress. And here she starts to take a step where you can become a fan of the character as well, and not just the actress playing her. So it is pretty cool. Chris manages to, like I said, we have this deputy that gets killed. Chris kind of hides underneath the truck. They get back to the cabin. We find Jesse now tied to this bed. Chris is able to set the cabin on fire and get in, and we kind of have some battling going on with the mutants. Finally, Jesse's able to get free and help him with that. So she's fighting them as well. He's kind of taken some of them down, but they still seem to be alive as he and Jesse back up out of the cabin. He's got one shot left of the gun, and so he shoots the gas tank and blows it up, which causes the cabin then to explode. We get a shot then of Chris and Jesse escaping. They go back to this same gas station where Chris stopped at the beginning. This time he actually takes the map with him. Credits start to roll, but then we get a mid-credit scene of another police officer arriving, and then we see that Three Finger is still alive. We get his laugh one more time, and the impression there that he then attacks and kills the police officer. Give me your thoughts on this finale and how we wrapped it up.
I did appreciate the, like you said, mid-credit scene, because that's not something you saw a lot, especially back in the 2000s. It's something nowadays we're much more accustomed to because of Marvel with credit scenes and things like that, but it wasn't something that we got a lot. So that was something that they did that was really cool. Is because they talk about, one final scare. So now they're dead. Where's our one final scare? It's in the mid-credit scenes. If you're rewarded for sitting a little bit longer to get there.
Yeah.
Jesse fought back. I kind of wish Chris had died and she was the one to do the final. That Chris had sacrificed himself and she was able to be the one to finally end things for them. I feel like I would have appreciated that a little bit more, and that might have helped her as a final girl to. She didn't have to rely on a man, but
she
he
did.
Was the one.
Yeah.
But she kind of did. And again, when you go into these horror movies, a big thing about slashers is the final girl. The final girl. And again, Laurie Strode, Dr. Loomis. So it's not in apples to apples in every horror movie, but it's kind of what we've come to expect. Sydney even has help with Gail Weathers and things like that. So they're not always by themselves. But I would have liked her to at least have gotten the final kill on the guys to walk away. Because for me, it's Jesse's story. She's on the poster. Chris is not on the poster. We're not selling the movie on Chris. But Chris kind of feels like the main character. And like you said, you don't really give a shit about him, despite the fact that they've kind of pushed him to be the main character.
Yeah, I think it would have been much better, kind of like what you're saying, if somewhere, I mean, he can show up there and save her, but in battling, these mutants, we already know he's been injured, he's been shot in the leg. If he would have gotten, even if he doesn't have to die, and it's so funny you mentioned it, because I thought about that at the end, and I'll get there in a second, but if he could have just gotten more injured to where she's basically helping him out of the cabin,
She saves
and
him.
then yeah, she saves him, and then she turns around and takes the shot to to blow everything up. I do think that would have been much better. At one point, I was thinking, they could have killed him and it would have been fine. But then I don't know why. Every once in a while, I get very sympathetic, and I was thinking to myself, but damn, if she just went through all this with her boyfriend breaking up with her, and so her friends brought her out here, and all of her friends get killed, and this guy that's been trying to save her gets killed. What the fuck does this poor girl go back to? So okay, he can live. That's fine. But I wish she would have saved him instead.
Two other minor things. Elijah Dushku, Jessica Biel, both white tank tops,
Yes.
brown hair,
Yeah.
same year as
Yeah.
Final Girls. And then the only other thing that I had as far as something that reminded me of something else was in the scene where they're hiding under the table and he's looking for the bullet and Carly is dropped and her blood is slowly like creeping towards him at the table.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of Hostel, which came out in 2005, where he's laying on the cart and he's looking at his dead friend
Yeah.
and they're reaching around for the fallen fingers and all of that. Like, all of that gave me Hostile vibes. And again,
Yeah.
I hate that I'm watching this movie and I'm seeing these things, and it just makes me think of other movies.
Other movies. I get that.
Instead of, this. But, yeah, no. So, but that being said, this could have also inspired, or people could have seen these scenes and been like, that's really cool. How can I do that in my movie? So,
Yeah.
there is that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Overall, like I said, it's not a bad movie. It is a fun movie. I was exhausted in a little bit of a mood when I watched it, so that may have tainted my viewpoint. But it wasn't that I didn't enjoy the movie. I feel like I remembered it a little more fondly than the experience I had with it this time around, for whatever reason.
That's fair.
Overall, though, it's wrong turn. It's
Yeah.
a wrong turn. It gives you exactly what they tell you it's going to give you. It gives you inbred hunters in the backwoods, mutant inbred hunters hunting young people, and we have 5 more movies of that before we do whatever the weird thing that the remake did.
Yeah. I'm with you. So tell me this then, Matt. On my scale that I always use of 1 to 10, what would you rank Wrong Turn from 2003?
I have to look to see if there's an unrated version of this, because if there was an unrated version of this, I would give it a 6 or a 7.
Okay.
But, and again, every movie that I have mentioned so far that this movie has reminded me of did not suffer from, like, Hostel definitely did not suffer 2 years later from the cutbacks that they made into this movie.
Mm-hmm.
2 movies that came out the same year as this did not suffer from, whatever censoring they did in this film.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, because it's still Wrong Turn. You say Wrong Turn and horror fans know what Wrong Turn is. Like,
Right.
It has a name. So I'm going to give it a 5. I'm going to stick it firmly right in the middle at a 5 out of 10. An unrated version would get a slightly higher rating for me. Just give me a little more kills. Give me a little something extra.
Okay. Yeah, I'm very curious to see where the rest of this franchise goes for you then based on that. For me, like I said, this one, I've always loved horror movies. I've talked about that before. My love for horror grew tremendously in the late 90s after movies like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, some things like that. A lot of people give some shit to the early 2000s. I'm a huge fan of that Texas Chainsaw remake that you were talking about with Jessica Biel. I think it's really, really good. I really enjoyed this first Wrong Turn movie. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. I agree with you 100%. I would have liked to have gotten some better kills. I would have liked for there to have been something extra. But I still have a lot of fun with this movie. And that's one of the things that I look for the most. I'm not a big fan of slow burns. I'm not a big fan of these incredibly deep, oh, I really had to think about that kind of, that's not what some of those are good. But that's not what I look for. This one's just one of those that, 23 years later, I still can turn it on and have a great time and laugh and enjoy myself. And yeah, this is one of my favorites. Not a perfect movie. It's not a 9 or a 10, but I like this one well enough that I would give it an 8. I absolutely love this movie. Like I said,
Okay,
it's one of
okay.
my favorites. There are other movies in the franchise that I enjoy as well. So I'm looking forward to going through the whole franchise with you. I don't
I know
know.
I've seen them all 2 or 3 times. I remember nudity makes a comeback, I
Yes,
think, in the next movie.
I believe so.
And like you said, they went direct to DVD, so the kills also get a lot more brutal going forward.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I may be misremembering this, and I'm really excited to find out. But I feel like there is a Wrong Turn movie that has a poster with snow, and there is no snow in the movie. And then there is another movie in the franchise that takes place in the snow that does not have snow on the poster. And I was like, why did we do this?
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at the poster. So I know Wrong Turn 4 takes place in the snow because Wrong Turn 4 is the one where it's almost like a prequel. It's where we meet the three cannibals, but they're quite a bit younger, and we've got the people that are on snow skis. There are some amazing kills in that one. Yeah, I really like Wrong Turn 4, but I would have to go back and look at the posters to see exactly which way you were talking. But 4 is one of my favorites. I think it's
I want
called
to say,
Bloody Beginnings. I think it's like Wrong Turn 4 Bloody Beginnings or something like that. But that one happens in the snow.
Wrong Turn 5 has the snowy poster. No, it doesn't. I don't know. Like I said, I might be misremembering it. Maybe I got it backwards. But there was something. One of them it might be Bloody Beginnings. One might be Bloodlines. And there's something where I felt like
It was
two of the
backwards.
movies were backwards for whatever reason. So
Very cool.
I, I can't wait. I can't wait to get farther into the franchise and figure it out and talk about it. But
Yeah.
I am looking forward to doing it as well, despite my Debbie Downer ish attitude a little bit to the first movie, which is what set off the franchise. I do enjoy the franchise, and I'm looking forward to what we have coming up with more tales of inbred mutants murdering people in the backwoods.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And, I mean, yeah, one of the things that I do appreciate about the horror community for the most part, there are exceptions out there, but I think the horror community is incredibly accepting and love the fact that everybody can kind of like their own thing with that. There's something out there for everybody. So even though you and I don't completely see eye to eye on this one, you didn't tell me I was crazy when I gave it an 8. So I
No, absolutely
appreciate
not.
that. But
There are
yeah,
some really bad movies that I love, so that I would give a high rating, and people would look at me like I'm fucking crazy. And we've talked about Nightmare on Elm Street 6 before, so
yeah,
like
absolutely. All right, I get that.
it
Well,
happens.
Matt, thank you again so much for coming on. I'm so grateful to Kelly and Sarah for um, bringing us in touch and that kind of thing because you've been on 2 episodes with me now. I've been on your channel. It's been great. I love talking horror with you. It's been a lot of fun. So thank you so much again for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
I am going to reach out to you very soon to see what your schedule is like because Katie and I also do an interview series where we sit down with horror creators and do a little mini interview. We call it the Gory Hole. And
Okay.
seeing as you went and won the first trick or trivia you were in, and you're on a little hiatus now until the end, we got to get you back on. And I would love to sit down and interview you and learn more about you and your love of horror, where it started, and all of that.
No,
So
I appreciate
we'll
that. Thank
we'll
you
be in
so
touch for
much.
that.
Yeah, very good. Do you want to take a minute before we get off here and go ahead and promote your channel? Talk about what you have coming up again?
Well, before we get off, my show is called Getting Off, which is, a double entendre, just like Smacking It Raw was.
Yeah.
But you guys, like I said, Linktree/Getting Off. You can follow me on all the socials, TikTok, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky. I am most active on TikTok and Instagram, but you guys can follow me everywhere at Getting Off to see what we have coming up. We are a bi-weekly horror podcast. So we have a new episode for you every other week. And then I recently, with the Gory Hole episodes, the interviews, and then a little riff tracks thing I've been doing with my friend Will, have been dropping episodes in between. So just yesterday, our review of Leprechaun, the beginning, I believe,
Okay.
uh, whatever the latest Leprechaun movie was, which was absolutely terrible. So the goal with Will and I sitting down is to find some of the worst horror movies we can, watch them, and then have a good time talking shit. This all started because I made him watch Zombie Strippers, and he hated watching it by himself, and then fell in love watching it and talking shit about it with me. So we've done Crackoon. We tried to do Evil Tunes like 3 times, and it was not in the cards. We might go back to it. But yeah, no. The latest Leprechaun film, which is absolutely terrible, maybe one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life, is available for you guys to sit down and listen to me and Will watch and just be baffled by how this movie even got made. So yeah, you'll have a little bit of content every week, but if you want to catch us live, it's every other week. And we have a plethora of shows. We have panels, we have trivia, we have my favorite, which is the Katie Horror Showcase, where I pick a movie that Katie has never seen for her to sit down and watch and review with me. We do franchise reviews like we're doing with Alien coming up Sunday from when you listen to this. So, yeah, please check us out. Send us some love. Sean, it's always a blast. Again, you said it. I'm so thankful that Sarah and Kelly were like, hey, reach out to Sean, have him on the show. He's great, because I had you on the show and you were great. And now we get to work together, and it's always a blast. So
yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I will give you I mean, if you don't watch it, no big deal. But when you were talking about you and your friend doing the bad horror, have you seen Freshwater?
I have not.
Yeah.
I'm putting that in my notes right now.
That is the lowest score I have given a movie. That I gave that a 0.5. It didn't even get a 1. I gave it a 0.5 out of 10. One of the worst things I've ever seen. Absolutely ridiculous. So if you want to watch bad horror and laugh while you're doing it, watch Freshwater. It's a crocodile slasher film.
Okay.
Yeah, they tried to combine those two subgenres, and yeah, it's interesting the way that turned out. So yeah, check that one out sometime if you get a chance. But yes, thank you so much again for coming on, Matt. I really do appreciate it. Leave me some comments today. Let Matt and I know what you think about Wrong Turn. Are you as big a fan as I am, or do you find it just kind of hitting in the middle like Matt does? Just don't say anything bad in the comments about Eliza Dushku, and everything will be fine. If you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, please do so. I've got some fun stuff coming out next week. I'll have an episode coming out on Send Help, movie that came out earlier this year. Swift from Horror 365 and Cece from Cece's Horror are both going to be on a live stream with me on Tuesday night, where we're going to be talking about the movie It Feeds. I've also got a review coming up on Dolly, so a lot of fun stuff coming up. Be sure and subscribe so you don't miss anything. Follow me on social media. I'm pretty much on everything out there: Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, Letterboxd. Just search Sean's Horror Corner. You will be able to find it. Can't wait to get Matt back soon so we can talk Wrong Turn 2. Matt, thank you again so much for coming. Everyone, thank you for watching. I will see you soon.